This woman, with 2.37 million followers, became an internet sensation in China after she captured the human trafficker who abducted her when she was just 5 years old, 17 years ago. Now, she earns tens of thousands of dollars each month on the platform, but this stroke of luck comes from her deep misfortune. When she was 5, she was taken by a trafficker, and just a few months later, her parents passed away from grief and guilt. It wasn't until 17 years of suffering that she finally put the very same trafficker behind bars and secured a death sentence for her. She said, "My hands and feet went numb, and I couldn't stop shaking. I felt this tingling all over, and tears just kept streaming down my face. I was locked in on her the whole time, hoping she'd turn around and look at me. If she did, she'd know who had put her on trial. I wanted her to remember me, because I hate her so much. I remember her, and I wanted her to remember me. I wanted her to know that the 5-year-old girl she stole has come back and is now putting her on trial. She didn't kill anyone, but she plunged countless families into despair. She was so ruthless that she even sold her own children. In total, she trafficked 17 kids, leaving 12 families shattered, including 5 that lost 2 children. Yu Huaying could never have imagined that the child she had trafficked would end up testifying against her. Today, we'll talk about the lifelong shadows cast over the children she trafficked, the details of Yu Huaying's crimes, and how the victims managed to capture her based on their fading memories. On September 18, 2023, a highly publicized child trafficking case went to trial at the Guiyang People's Court. For many in attendance, this day had been a long time coming. One of the victims, Yang Youhua, was just under 5 when she was sold from Guizhou to Hebei. Years later, her memories of that abduction have faded, but one detail remains crystal clear: she couldn't handle the harsh climate. It was January 8, 1995, and the cold of northern China left a lasting impression on her. She recalled, "I felt pain deep in my bones. Standing in that frigid winter air wearing thin clothes, I remember being outside in the yard. I know I remember that because I was so cold, desperately searching for the sun." At that young and naive age, Yang Youhua had no idea her fate was being changed forever. After arriving in Hebei province, she was picked up by an elderly woman who insisted that Yang Youhua call her grandma. The man she was told to call dad was a single deaf-mute. During those early days after her abduction, Yang Youhua didn't remember much. She couldn't even recall how she adapted to her new life. However, the family that bought her was straightforward about her background. She grew up knowing that her grandma had paid $350 for her, a child abandoned by her impoverished biological parents. Her adoptive father was an unmarried deaf-mute, and the grandma had brought her in so that someone would care for her son after she passed away. Later, the grandma renamed Yang Youhua to Li Suyan and celebrated the day she was bought as her new birthday. In those early years, Yang Youhua often dreamed of her mother, though her face was always a blur. She only remembered her mother had beautiful long hair, and she recalled that her father was handsome, likely named Yang Xingmin. She also had a sister about her age, probably named Sang Ying. She remembered living in a happy family, but then, overnight, her father, mother, and sister were gone. That question haunted her. Sometimes, neighbors would ask about her parents' names and if she had been stolen and sold. Such questions quickly reached her grandma, who became increasingly suspicious. Whenever Yang Youhua mentioned her biological parents, her grandma would scold and hit her, leading her to bury those memories deep down. Fortunately, her adoptive father treated her well and never abused her. After graduating from elementary school, Yang Youhua's grandma didn't allow her to continue her education because the middle school was too far away. So, at 13, Yang Youhua dropped out and started working nearby. As she grew older, rumors in the village began to spread that she had been bought as a wife for her adoptive father, which she couldn't accept. The emotional torment was overwhelming, and every day felt like a heavy blow to her psyche. In 2005, at the age of 15, Yang Youhua insisted on working outside, and after persuasion from her adoptive father, her grandma finally relented. She got a job at an electronics factory in Jiangsu province. Although it was a completely new environment, It was also the most relaxed time she'd experienced since becoming aware of her situation. With a chance to catch her breath, Yang Yuhua gradually developed the desire to find her biological parents. Even if they had been the ones to sell her, she felt the need to seek them out for answers. In 2012, at 22, she got married and started her own family, welcoming her own child. Luckily, she found a wonderful husband who cared for her deeply, bringing her unprecedented warmth. This support bolstered her confidence to search for her roots. She shared her story with her husband and expressed her wish to find her biological family, and her family was very supportive. Yang Yuhua began her search online, discovering a platform called Baobei Huijia, Baby Home. With the help of volunteers, she posted information about her family on the site, sharing what she remembered. Her dad's name was Yang Xingmin, her name was Yang Yuhua, and her sister's name was Sang Ying. However, as the years passed, the responses she received were few and far between. After several DNA tests that yielded no matches, she felt disheartened but refused to give up. In April 2021, at the suggestion of volunteers and her family, Yang Yuhua uploaded a selfie video on a short video platform asking for help finding her family. The video quickly went viral and generated numerous leads. A few days later, a girl who saw her video reached out to Yang Yuhua, saying she might be her cousin since their uncle and cousin shared names that matched Yang Yuhua's descriptions. With the help of that girl, Yang Yuhua quickly got in touch with her sister, Yang Sang Ying. As they talked, they discovered they shared memories of their childhood, and Yang Yuhua confirmed that Sang Ying was indeed her biological sister. On May 10, 2021, with the assistance of relevant authorities, Yang Yuhua and Yang Sang Ying underwent a genetic relationship test, confirming that they were indeed sisters. She said, "Then I asked her, what about mom and dad?" My sister replied, "They've been dead for a long time." I was just stunned, it felt like my brain went blank. "You know?" I said, "Who died?" She said, "Mom and dad." At that moment, I felt like all my hope was gone. In my memories, I should be that mischievous kid, and I wanted to come back just like I was at 5. I wanted to call them and say, "I'm back. You didn't look for me, but I found my way back. You can't just get rid of me now." It was that kind of feeling, you know? But when I asked, she said both my parents were gone. They had actually both passed away. This dropped Yang Yuhua from heaven, straight into hell. All her hopes of reuniting with her parents were shattered. On May 15, 2021, Yang Yuhua returned to her hometown in Guizhou province after 26 years. The blurry images that had repeatedly played in her mind finally became real right before her eyes. Overwhelmed with emotion, after getting home, she went to her parents' graves. She knelt there and cried uncontrollably. In those 26 years, she had so much hurt and resentment bottled up inside. She said, "All these years, I really have suffered. But who can I tell about it? I was just waiting to go back to share it with my parents. I wanted to vent a little. I wanted to say, did you know? You didn't look for me. Do you know how I've grown up gritting my teeth all these years? How many tricks I had to play? How many scoldings and beatings I took? How much slander I endured just to get to this point? I wanted to tell them all of this, but I never got the chance." With the help of her family, Yang Yuhua gradually pieced together the events surrounding her abduction. Back then, her parents took her and her sister to Guizhou province to work. In January 1995, as the Spring Festival was approaching, relatives back home received a call from her father saying Yang Yuhua was missing. They searched for many days, but couldn't find her. Later, relatives from home traveled to Guizhou to help look for her, but despite their efforts, Yang Yuhua remained elusive. Yang Yuhua's sister, Yang Sang Ying, clearly remembers that on the day her sister went missing, their parents had left early in the morning, telling the sisters to stay at home and not to wander off since they had some work to do. They returned home late that evening only to discover their youngest daughter was gone. It turned out that shortly after their parents left, Yang Yuhua had gone out with a neighboring girl. Yang Sang Ying recalls that their family lived in an urban village, and just a couple of weeks before the incident, a family of 3 had moved in next door. The little girl in that family was about Yang Nyohua's age, and she had played with her a few times. On that fateful day, just after their parents had left, the mother and daughter from next door came over and offered to take the sisters to play outside. Both sisters initially refused. The neighbors then asked if there was anything they wanted, and Yang Nyohua mentioned she wanted a pair of knitting needles. In the end, the young Yang Nyohua couldn't resist the temptation and followed the mother and daughter out of the house. After hearing about the incident from their older daughter, Yang Nyohua's parents immediately went to the neighbor's home, but by then, they had already left. When the landlord opened the door, he found the place completely empty. At that moment, Yang Nyohua's parents realized they knew almost nothing about their neighbors, only having met them a few times, and they didn't even know their names. The landlord didn't have any detailed information about them either. During that time, Yang Nyohua's parents basically lived at the bus and train stations, having quit their jobs to search for their daughter. As time passed, there was still no sign of Yang Nyohua, and this happy family of 4 fell into despair. A few months after the little girl was abducted, in October 1997, her father, Yang Xingmin, succumbed to endless guilt and grief, uttering Yang Nyohua's name in his last moments. 4 months later, overwhelmed by the double blow of losing her daughter and husband, her mother also passed away. Yang Nyohua's mother died at the age of 32, and her father was 38 when he passed. Knowing her parents died young from heartbreak filled Yang Nyohua with rage and sorrow. She made a decision to find the person who had abducted her. Years later, her sister, Yang Sengying, still remembered the appearance of that neighbor. Through her sister's description, Yang Nyohua began to recall the woman's face. The terrifying look in her eyes still sent shivers down her spine. On the train, that woman had threatened her, saying that if she screamed, she would throw her out of the window. After arriving in Hebei province, the woman had physically assaulted her multiple times, even scalding her head with hot water. On June 5, 2022, Yang Nyohua went to the police station to file a report. She recounted her abduction and search for her family, and based on her investigations, she suspected that the woman might be named Yu Huaying. This was what the intermediary who sold her had told her, and the family that had purchased her lived in the same village. After successfully identifying her family in 2021, Yang Nyohua located the intermediary, who was now in her 80s. She said she would ask the trafficker where I came from, but then she replied, "I don't know. You never told me where you were from. I can't find her." She was surprised, but hadn't originally planned to share this person's name. However, as soon as she mentioned the surname Yu, I immediately remembered her name, Yu Huaying. This revelation shocked Yang Nyohua. It turned out that for all these years, this name had been buried deep in her memory. To quickly confirm Yu Huaying's identity, she chose to report her abduction in Guizhou province, where it had happened. Since she was abducted in 1995, by 2022, her case had exceeded the 20-year statute of limitations. However, the police, with their years of experience, suspected that Yang Nyohua's case might not be an isolated incident. Based on her account, even after nearly 30 years, the 80-something intermediary could still accurately recall the name Yu Huaying. This likely indicated that his dealings with her were far from over. The police then traveled to Hebei province to investigate the intermediary. When questioned, he admitted that Yu Huaying had indeed brought some children to him for sale, but he continuously deflected inquiries about their whereabouts, claiming his old age made it hard for him to remember. However, he did inform the police that Yu Huaying had been arrested in Yunnan province in 2004. The police then headed to Yunnan for verification. According to local authorities, they had only captured one group of traffickers back then, who claimed to be from Chongqing. Due to the limited conditions at the time, the identity information of the 2 suspects couldn't be verified. They were ultimately sentenced to 8 years in prison based on the names they provided. Later, the woman who identified herself as Zhang Yun received a reduced sentence for good behavior and was released early in 2009. There was a photo of Zhang Yun in the files, which the police printed out and mixed in with other photos for Yang Nyohua to identify. As soon as Yang Youhua saw the woman claiming to be Zhang Yun, she recognized her instantly as the Yu Huaying who had abducted her. She said, "I recognized her by her eyes. It was the face from my memory, so fierce." Her eyes had this coldness, and the corners of her eyes drooped down with high cheekbones. After further investigation, the police confirmed Yu Huaying's true identity and current residence. On June 30, 2022, in Chongqing, they successfully apprehended Yu Huaying while she was playing mahjong. During the interrogation, the nearly 60-year-old Yu remained unusually calm. Whenever the discussion turned to human trafficking, she would fall silent, refusing to say anything, even about her 8-year sentence from the Yunnan court. The police were not worried about her attitude, as they were busy gathering evidence. They began to review abduction cases from Guizhou province between 1992 and 1997, while also collaborating with the Hebei police to collect blood samples from unidentified children in the area. Based on the suspect's profile, they quickly uncovered several related cases. In these cases, the circumstances of the children's abductions were very similar to Yang Youhua's experience. Each time, there had been a family of 3 or a mother and daughter seen nearby before the child went missing. As the evidence mounted, Yu Huaying's attitude softened. She admitted to having trafficked several children, but claimed she was directed to do so by a man named Gong Xianliang. According to the police investigation, Yu and Gong were involved in a romantic relationship. Originally from Yunnan province, Yu had married Wang Jiawen from Chongqing. In 1992, Wang was imprisoned for theft, leaving Yu to raise their young daughter alone. Shortly thereafter, she met Gong Xianliang, a small contractor who was more than a decade older and had his own family. Despite this, they began living together. Later, Yu and Gong worked in Yunnan and sold vegetables in Guiyang. Their business struggles led them into debt, and after Yu gave birth to Gong's son, they decided to sell him, as neither of them could afford to raise him. Yu recounted that in 1993, Gong took her and their child to Hebei province, where they found an intermediary. Through this contact, the child was quickly sold. This transaction opened their eyes to the profit potential of child trafficking, and they formally embarked on this path. During their operations, they often brought along Yu's daughter to attract other children. They typically targeted urban villages where migrant workers lived. After renting a place, they would identify nearby children and, under the pretense of taking them shopping, swiftly head to the train station to sell them to the intermediary. Yu insisted that she only acted under Gong's instructions, but investigations revealed she played a much more active role, as she was the one who dealt directly with the intermediary. As for Gong Xianliang, the police initially speculated he might be Wang Wei, who was sentenced alongside Yu in 2004. However, investigations showed this wasn't the case. Wang Wei was actually Yu's husband, Wang Jiawen, while Gong had passed away from illness in 2008. By 1997, Yu and Gong had separated due to relationship issues, but she continued to traffic children with her husband Wang Jiawen. Acting as the mastermind, she involved her husband in their crimes. In 2004, they were caught in the act of trafficking children and, after their arrest, only confessed to crimes they had committed together. Yu concealed earlier offenses by using false identities. Ultimately, the police confirmed that from 1993 to 1996, Yu Huaying and Gong Xianliang had trafficked a total of 11 children, affecting 8 families. They aimed to hold Yu accountable for her actions during that period, as she had been involved in multiple trafficking incidents. On September 18, 2023, the Guiyang City Court publicly sentenced Yu Huaying to death for child trafficking and confiscated all her personal property. Yu Huaying appealed the ruling immediately. On November 28, 2023, the case was reopened in the Guizhou Provincial Court for a second trial due to discovered omissions in charges. As investigations continued, the number of children Yu trafficked increased from 11 to 17, affecting 12 families, 5 of whom had 2 children abducted. On October 25, 2024, the case was retried, and the Guiyang City Court again sentenced Yu Huaying to death and confiscated her property. She still appealed the verdict, but it was unlikely that her death sentence would be overturned. In China, the nature of her crimes left no possibility for changes to her sentence. What awaited her was undoubtedly the ultimate punishment.